Gulchish hati ati to cut you on. Awa shukwa tuasaku. Jake genki do dot aya akwatan. Ya Art Johns you do a sock oe ka. Knachoe do in Tlingit has aushakuken. Ya yagiko ach hanakugud. A joyach tuasaku do dot aya achtatani. Was a tusha ani ka. Kakanachoe de tuasaku at awashi. We kadu tlak like kathatsewa kadu tlak hook. Gwashi do a sakaway way guitar. Kanachoe de tuasaku at awe ausha achi. Chitlay aya hayukatangi dat wish kanachutu da adi dakka ach ewuti kanachoe natasahini. De tuasagu ach inawe yuch ewatani Tlingit chenach. De glag oish agwe ewutien. Hu oe konachoe aushagu kayukatangi. Clay de hinoe hukka keuchne cho ach Tlingit yukatangi tin aya wushas kawush atge. De glag oe Ada Haskins aya desai. Yan ye de chassati. A joy ya yan ye di ach sakai ye guay ach Ya ye nakugud. Ye data ya tunakko ay kani yan. Yes the cutway shukach adi. Ye da ye tia ye dat. Oe dakka aya natu atjin. Wish to say away had dakka kuutin. Yan ye di kadaklo ye di. Deshitan, ishkitan, kukitan. Jaklek iachawil the katuhan. Ye owe hakusti. Atu dachaya shitzin haji ti. Kleidihin aya yan wad. Hast du eich aya kachshit. An kaddish hiti at teen. Yes the kat ku. Ye owe hashachwaja. Hashakachwaja. Katkinach the katuhan. Kelach tuashku chakut at aya watu achi. Kunachoy chal the cut at away. Ausa achwe microphone. Kalkinach. Ja. Kone ya kawaju. Akawe kone has yu kawash atka. Katkat se wok akadusa. Shagun kashutin. Kwash sa ustla kadage ka kaklake. Akatkat se wok aktakasa. Konach away. Hashwut the katl. Aka away hede shuwatan wikahat. Konach away lagautin athu good. Wasus latini Juan aya. Ye awa chosatin adusa. Adata wa itachtatan. Ha. Just ye kakwati. Itra ko aduchan chogut. Tlaikach inachoid in kashóokʼ. Cowboys don't walk softly. At kashóokʼ. Nope. No, they don't. Jawasa de tuasaku ko atlagaudin atwugudi. Jadakte ayakakugud. Ya ach kani. Gunchishach eti sa achi. Mishukwa ach tuasaku. De dat ayuch de tan. Chikle hanaku adi a. Has de dat aya kagachtisha ad. Chish. Ya khana hayejene wuchina dat ejagachtune. Yata. Shkalneek tulayéx wuch in. Jasagutin aya yejagachtune. Chawasa yituwasagu. Ya kagachilniki. Helwasaka kwati. Ye achtuwasagu. Ho ach. Wushtach ko ye jagachine. Hechwasaku kunsa gwal. Kunsa yituasaku. Naskinach gwal kejininach. Naskinach gwal hagakwati. Kejin yejine kuu yekakwasti. Kejininach nask yejine kuu yekakwasti. Kunsa yituati. Oh, yitat gwal. Kejin ga yake kakwa ak. Ye awe ye kwati. Ya achtuasaku yisatini. Yata. Hastu shkalneek aya. Just sagutin. Sagu. Chawasa yituasaku. Achtuasaku koa. Tletkach enach akut de. Ya yidat koa. Tlesatinach oti. Gwal tlell de kat Johan tlell yika kwatlatin. Koa yisaku. Tlingit reinach yegach tutlach. Yeo achtuasaku kakachi aku. Ya yidat guksa we. Awal tlell dechi a. Yata. Nask I te kakwalayech. Gwal adenai a. Tlechwasaku gwal tlell shugo adgach tutlatin. We chat ko a we adulchechi a. Adulchechi yoch atangi kutzati. A kachaya kakich ka. Kakisatin. Just tlech kuk ko. Tlech ka. We kuk. Adataya yejine a kakukde. Wuchin aya wushkagach ya hashkalneeki. Tlekuk. Das tlekuk. Yigo one. Yi itikade nai a. Yi itikade nai a.
Yatako adasa ituasaku chakun naksa yukatang kutsati etwasaku kwati. Ye awe kwa what hawush put the shy etach gudesa ayagachtu kokachtu teen. Ya shahi disi awe ha klekai yagi yakwahi aya wushkachtu the shah. Gudesa ko akokachtu teen it kweka ye awaka. What Hawaii ya kunahoe ya ke we wushkachat. Johan ko adasa wasa itu wush ya kukadat. Sakutin wush shkalneek. Can you guys repeat your sentences for us? Whatever you came up with, and it's all for fun. Just remember, it's just we come up with as many as we want. It's good practice. Shanaqait, what did you come up? What did you come up with?
Wush has sikhan. I forgot. Hawaii Day surfing ga. Tleth has ye jene teen. Play only. What's the word for play? Cha. play
shkalneek.
Kushiat Tlashát teen Tlashyatki Tlash in-laws Tlashyatki ka in-laws teen. What's the word for in-laws? I know Connie? No.
Yeah, what Connie? What's Clay adu sakoa adu Connie sakoa. What's Clay? We show what adu ish katu tla. We yetki has a guhlatin. A joy has to yetki gut sakutin. At has kukwatin. So I think you might have to pick one of them just because I think in English you could just say in-laws, but it seems like you got to sort of think it might work better to pick one of them. Like, so say the lady's parents or the dad's parents, or you got to kind of name, you got to get a little bit more specific with the kinship term. Or you just say whose in-laws they were and you pick one of them to be kind of the main character. And so, and then you could say hastu yetki, hasta guhlatin. So you've named the in-laws and now they're gonna watch the kids at Joes to Putin, atas kutin, and they're just gonna go travel for fun. But that might be for Wasa. Depends how old those kids are and how much work they are. It's probably Wasa, but it's also Saku, whichever. So Wasayitin, and then a travel, some kind of traveling verb is how you get vacation. Geez, okay. Anything else, or you guys want to look at the next one?
Bill Kameri Tlach Kunach Hasliwu Idat Ikan.
Okay, jeez. Okay, ha. Took again.
Was Mary Bill Day Yeyawaka Yisikuge Chan Hot Kunatin Hatsewa Chan is that stepmother or not stepmother, mother-in-law.
Yeah, and so it's really fun to think about kinship because if in this scenario they're married, if he asks her about her mother-in-law, he's asking about his own mother. But if he asks about his, and so just in terms of like, if he were to talk to her and they were married, and let's say this, he would say, ach chan, and that would be your mother.
Because it's his mother-in-law.
So I think it works either way. But if he were to say, I don't think in the conversation he would say your mother-in-law, because he would just say my mother. But I think it works fine either way. But it's just sort of one of these things, like the way we think about it in English is it's a looser kinship structure, I think. But then, but maybe it's the same too, like in English, and we just got to sort of, it's all fictional, so it's just for fun. It's
well,
kind of
this
neat.
is where the first husband comes in.
Oh, right. So maybe this, maybe the, or maybe, maybe that's not even the husband. You know, like we're gonna write this Tlingit soap opera, but yeah, okay. How we want it. Okay, good.
Tulashát 18. Not with our mothers. We will go cook Oh, we will go cook.
Huh.
Cook.
What's the next
I don't know.
prefix? What's the next part of the prefix, folks?
Ga.
Ga. Gachtu.
Cook gach to tea. Cook gach to fly.
Oh. Chokach. Well, chokach tu daqin.
Cook gach to the keen.
Oh, wait,
Tlesh.
we gotta chop the k off the front. Gach tu daqin.
Gach to the keen. Ha. Tlesh ha tlaki teen. Cook or gach. Gach to the keen.
Yeah.
Gach to the keen.
Gach tu.
Hawaii day.
And then to pluralize the mothers, you would use hus. And then here's one of these things where, like, to say with and not with, we would actually be saying with and without. Anybody know the without part?
Chutle.
Well, that would be the when just at that time.
Say it again, Kindé. Without what or?
Yeah, so if I say, I'm gonna go with you, but then instead of, like in English, I would say, I'm not gonna go with you is probably how I would say that. But to say, I'm gonna go without you. So this is, so like, instead of saying klesh ha tla hastin, there's a different way that I'm looking for in terms, and so it's to say without them.
Is that keen? Is that?
So teen is with.
I mean, keen, like with a K is what I'm.
Oh,
Is it,
Or am I off base there?
a little bit off. Maybe a
is
different.
it goot?
Boot. So then you would say hatla hasqut. And then so it stays in the positive form. But that's how you'd say, like, without something. So it's really fun because it's just sort of like, okay, this is with, what about without? And so and there's conceptually we had to think of a couple different things, because you say naq, which would mean we're gonna leave, hayatki naq. We're leaving our kids behind and we're going flying. But you could also say, like, without, and that would be qut. So qut is an underlined G, high toned long O, and T. So that's how you'd say without something. There is a short form, like a command, verbless command. Aqut de means like be without it. But you can also just say, like, I left without my keys. And so there's two ways you could say it. You could say, but then it kind of requires that second motion verb. I left and I left my keys behind. But you could also say I went without I left there without my keys. But it can also, that's also how you'd specify, like, you're not going with someone, I think. Then there might be other ways to take care of it, but that's one way to say, like, not with them. Nothing against the mothers-in-laws.
What about, like, te siyawd at, they escaped?
Yeah, like they ran out of, that could work, because, like, life is kind of like a prison.
Wasa duasak elope.
Oh, elope. That'd probably be kayat einach wush with the shah. So getting married in secret. So ka yateinach is like through behind the faces of people. It's kind of literally how it works, and that means in secret. And then wudashah is marriage.
How about wakin ade gachta? to the teen to Wasagu.
Oh yeah.
Because she's got the question mark and got the calendar in the airplane.
Right. Yeah, I'd probably say kinsa ituwasagu kinsa ituwasagu tutini.
Wakinsa to Wasagu
Ade.
ade got to the teen.
And so you could say gachtu dekin or kukachtu teen, whichever one. There's an airplane there, so let's just shift it to the flying verb. Gachtu dekin. Okay.
Keen, okay.
Naskiage to a T.
Achnak ayaudahan. He fled from me.
Yeah, there's that nuk, which is getting left behind, So, we're talking about this, and then I teach a class on Monday, Wednesday afternoons, and I was kind of talking about this stuff too. It's like sometimes we're teasing, but where there's some real situations where we're going to need some of this type of language, and so and we can see that too, like they'd say su hey de shugach tutan ya kuske the kate haji anak haskau the key. So that there's that nak in there as well, which is a directional thing, and it means to leave something behind. And so this is also a phrase that we use when somebody passes away. Sometimes they'll say hanak wukut, and then people will know what you're saying. We talked about this in class too. Like sometimes you'll put some words together and there's a literal translation, but then there's a cultural meaning to it. And every language has a whole bunch of them. But then you could also, when we were composing a song for the Suicide Prevention Council, we put in that song, we're not going to leave you behind. So yeah, sometimes it has to do with abandonment. Sometimes it has to do with, forgetfulness. Yeah, Home Alone, you do a sa quickly out the high. Yeah, ka ish, play nach has to yeti, has to do nak has to art. And so just keeping the pronouns straight. So like there was a movie called Home Alone, a mother, so you could say ka ish, a mother and a father. Has to yeti, one of their children. Do nak kashóokʼ. So he was the one left behind. So if whoever is in front of that nak is the one getting left behind. So I could say, ach nak y'all left and you left me here at the store. It's because I was taking forever. They had Walmart here in Juneau, and my grandma and mom would come here. Whew, those were long days walking around Walmart. Okay, sheesh. Oh, and then I put in the chat, that's a surfboard. Okay, what do we got on this one? Any suggestions?
Jiwanak. Her husband left her.
Yeah, so jiwanak is to let someone go. Wushk'it is to, well, you'd say aushk'it would be to throw something away, or also to divorce somebody, which these things do happen. Janak really means like to release or to let go, and it has some different meanings. Like I remember I had another dog. He was a pretty big dog, and I got him this harness, and one of my nephews was visiting, and I was over at my grandma's house, and he was just a little, he was like 2, right? Just a little. And he was sitting there holding the dog's harness. And I remember looking at him thinking, boy, he shouldn't hold that if the dog just takes off, you know. And sure enough, someone came in the door, so the dog wanted to run over and see who it was. The little boy, he didn't let go, and he was just getting dragged across the kitchen, and he wasn't getting hurt, but I said, Chinook, Chinook, oh, let go, let go. Like it didn't matter what language he just got drug, and finally it got, he finally like he couldn't hold on any longer. But that Chinook could also, it could have metaphorical meanings as well. So like to release something, to let go of it, to sort of stop holding on to something. And in that case, it's sort of working as a metaphor, like we were holding hands kind of, and then they let go. And so it's another one where it's like the literal meaning, once you put it in certain phrases, like you could say, and we would know you didn't throw him in the garbage, but it's over at that point. Okay, but there's love stuff too. You know, there's we get back to the story, whatever we want to make the story. So these are just used to sort of. It's fun because these are designed for. I think linguists make them so that they can solicit specific types of things from speakers. But then I like to use them just to make up stories and just have fun and figure out things that we need to learn how to say as well.
Like
What's a do sock airplane?
I've heard a couple.
That's cool.
I like Yenda Kinyak myself because it's nice and short. Wuch Kutkout Legiji is a longer name I've heard for it. It's like
I love that. That's fun.
Yeah, they fly.
It's the one that we're all flying on together, like as a group, right? It just makes me imagine we're all flapping our wings in there.
Yeah, that's the thing. You wouldn't pluralize, the flying verb pluralizes, right? So you have wudaqeen and you have taudligij. But it doesn't pluralize for people because we're not flying in a flock. But a flock of birds, you would switch it to taudligij. So, and that's important to notice to use if you're talking about migrating or anything like the geese all fly south, they're gonna get kandashich. And so that's why you say at kautlayich, you at for birds. But some planes, if you had your plane, I had my plane, and that would work. But wooch cut
So the planes are flapping their wings then?
Yes. Get in the plane and go. But that is, you know, so either, I've heard either term. I think Lear has that one documented, wooch cut and then when I was talking to elders, they liked Yenda Kinyak, which was also, that's a metaphor as well. It's like a flying boat. And then Kawayik was what we were using for like a spaceship. So Kawayik is into space. And so like, you could probably argue maybe Kiwa is space, but like outer space and stuff, like this is another instance where we got to figure out how we're going to talk about this stuff and teach about planets and everything else. So sometimes Kawayik is mostly used like, let's say somebody says something in a ceremonial event and they're your clan opposites, and then everybody just starts kind of moving on. That's a good time to stand up and just say, Akhani, Keshach Tuash, Kawayik, stay away with high Yukatung. So I don't want your language to just float out into space. And so that's where you catch it with the response. And so that's how that's usually used. And you'll see it in some of the Raven stories when things vanish into thin air. It's Kawayik is kind of into thin air, but I think it also works well for outer space.
Seems like we should say something about Sutat, Sitka, Nach, departed. Nach, Gachtu, no, Gachtu Keen, Gachtu the Teen, Ka Hawaii, Hawaii, Tot, got there.
Right. So, yeah, so great point. So he's talking, so these will still be future things. So it's really good. Yeah, sutat. So you can put that on there. Sheet kadach. Gach to dakin. And so we pick a thing like flying is probably a good one. But that one's got the D classifier. Gach to dakin. Akawe. Tatin, you could say tatin, which is in the nighttime. That's the nighttime is the one that gets the yin. Most other things would just get that X locative on there. And I think it's because like bad things happen at night in the old school way of thinking and Tlingit. And so you'd say and then you got a couple of different options. So one, you could sort of say Hawaii, and then you could put a T on there, Hawaii, Kashóokʼ. But I think it works better to say way Hawaii cut kashóokʼ. So that is for a plane to land, or a bird to land, or a person to squat, or for a bird to sit in a tree. So landing or squatting. It's also the way an octopus walks, it squat walks. So I would say Hawaii cut kashóokʼ. It's gonna land on Hawaii. On the Hawaii, the Aina, the Hawaii land.
Hawaii cut kashóokʼ. Is that what you said?
Yeah, what?
Hawaii cut kashóokʼ.
There's a bird, I think it's called a wren, and it's called kashóokʼ. It lands in a hole. So yeah, kashóokʼ is it did land, and so it's a SH, it's a plus D classifier. Kak is the root, and so that's any for a plane to land. And so that's probably what. So like this verb is getting the traveling. So sheet kadach gachtu dakin. We're gonna take off from Sitka. Akawe tat yin Hawaii kat gachtu. Well, kashóokʼ. You could say kashóokʼ as well. We're gonna land, but I guess I would probably just say it will land. But technicalities flying.
It's interesting because it seems like in my memory, going back and forth to Hawaii a lot, that the planes do get to Hawaii really late at night because they want to turn them around to send them back. So
yeah,
it feels very familiar.
If you leave Juneau on like a 5 a.m., you could get there in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. You're pretty tired.
But there's an Anchorage flight that used to leave at early evening and get in at midnight or something.
Okay. Any other thoughts on this one, or any thoughts in general?
Can I say Nezgadusha Shau at Gawu Yanachtaken Ka Kuyatin Nistat Ayasaka, he said.
Yeah, Osaka.
Yeah, Osaka.
Mm-hmm. And just for review, what's the difference, folks, between ye yawaka and ye yawsaka?
He said, and he told him.
Correct. So they're just minor differences. There's times where it's going to be, there's times where like it could be one or the other, and just a kashóokʼ and shkalneek, and just as far as like which one we use, but just keeping that straight. Ye yawaka, the focus is on the exact words. He said this, she said that. Ye yawsaka, the focus is on those exact words and also who it was said to. So these are some interesting sort of things. And then a kashóokʼ is like all about the information, right? And then a kashóokʼ is some sort of story or narrative. So it just depends. And then yuchewatan would be talking. Are they talking to? Are they telling information, or are they saying some specific thing? So when you start getting into the actual thing that was said, yawaka and yawsaka works. Okay.
One time I remember Walter Sobolov telling Nakiflan and I, we were just having lunch or something, and he talked about somebody talking to a group of people, and he said he wanted to talk to them, but the way he said it insulted them. And at that time, you know, I had no clue about any of these verbs, so I don't know what it was, but he must have, what might that have been about the way he said, I want to talk to you?
Well, if you put, if you end up saying talk in front of it instead of like tuk, so talk is like fast. It usually means fast, but it could also mean kind of aggressively. So like talk yausapa is scolding, or the other things that you could say is you could say or no wait, I want to explain it to you, and maybe they thought, well, we already know it. Who are you? Yeah, that's a good question. Because a lot of times you'd say there's different ways, like achtuasagu, achtuasagu yiin chachtetani. So that would be I want to talk to you. It doesn't seem to contain really anything. It's just like I'm going to talk to you. Achtuasagu yi yauchsakayi. I want to say this to you, and that's where you say like gonna cheese or whatever. And then yeah, that's a good question. Like maybe they felt maybe they didn't know who he was. Yeah, it's, you know, cosplaying. I like that.
Have to be careful.
Yeah, right. And there's also like just in terms of like if it's public, then the clan, you know, identity plays a role, and if something sensitive was going on and you had a thought to share, but maybe it was kind of none of your business, like that kind of stuff could come up as well. So yeah, it's there's a lot. Kashóokʼ is, it's sensitive, you know.
Gonna cheese.
Okay, do we got this one? Should we go to the next one? On our candlelit class. Yeah, sorry for anybody who's kicked off. I figure we'll just keep going a little bit, at least till I run out of battery. Kesasai kustik washe we hotel. Asagachtusa.
Tulusagu du tulayéx. Filled with happiness.
Stole happiness?
He's filled with happiness.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Did I say that right?
Say it one more time.
Tulusagu du tulayéx. It's in the old Tlingit verb dictionary, so spelling might be different, and I might be saying something wrong.
What page is it on?
148.
Jeez.
Oh. And sheesh.
Oh, jeez. Stop. Oh, no.
Tulusagu. That one.
Tulusagu du tulayéx. Oh, yeah, okay. Jeez. Okay,
Huh?
So we have kashóokʼ. Just kashóokʼ. So like to be kind of filled, to be totally there is kind of what we're looking at. And then to see, so like there's a couple different verbs that have this kashóokʼ kind of built onto it, like so moving along the inside of something. And there's two that I can, well, there's another one that I could think of. So we'll look up this. So we see here, yay, shkalneek. So when we're looking at these examples, sorry, I'll make this big. When we're looking at these examples, it's always good to just sort of do a little bit more analysis of what it's showing us with the verb here. So this one we see right here, tíx'i and yay shkalneek. So I would guess this would be an imperfective and a progressive imperfective. And because this is how do we know that this one up here is a progressive imperfective?
Yay.
Yay.
And
No.
yes, yay and na. So you're gonna have na in there. You should expect most of the time a short high stem, and then you're gonna have either ya, yay, or k in front of it. So because we have yay, what does this also tell us about this verb?
Around.
Is it ka?
It's ka, conjugation. So then this helps us to move the verb around into other, especially the future. So if you want to say this tíx'i or yay shkalneek in the future, so we're gonna say do tulayéx, and then what's the verb gonna be?
Ye shkalneek.
Yeah, what? Yay shkalneek. So there's a number of different things we had to remember. If it's ga, every future form has to have k in front of it. If the verb is ka, underline G, every verb has to have yay in front of it. So those are just sort of predetermined things. And so the other thing we're going to look up is this tíx'i, just to see what it might mean. So we're going to go to the X's. We'll go down to E. There's a whole bunch of them. And then we see J, Ka, Ya, Ki. And that's the only one, right? So like some emotion or sickness to just go through every part of it. So just be completely that thing.
I think
Okay.
that aligns with vacation pretty well.
Yeah, right. So it could be happy. That could be happiness, right? Just be totally
Just all of that.
happy.
Oh,
Gee,
there's Cheech.
maybe we could have Adukheidakihiti, maybe. I'll have to see what other speakers think for a hotel.
Itika hidi?
Yeah, so itika is a room. So yeah, like a house with room.
Many no, shkalneek is all or a lot, or knach is a lot.
Yeah, knach,
The cut,
yeah.
I keep getting mixed up. Oh. Ha eonich kashóokʼ. Ha gush. Ye yasika shtakat 18 chositin. Or would you say eonich? Like the sandy beach?
You could say
Eonich kashóokʼ. Way itika hidi.
Tich'eo works really well. It's Tich'eo a niche, a sandy beach. And it kind of implies that there's no rocks. So the way that was usually used is talk about like a good landing place or something. There's a Raven story where they said, Tich'eo. The sand was really sandy. It was kind of fun. Yeah, so and then so there's this hotel, and really he's talking about it like being right by the water, right? Okay. Anything else? Any other ideas?
Kuake ka audigan tuadach yak e tuasiguye ha guati.
Hey, sheesh. Yeah, what?
It's like singing about it. He's singing about all of the good things there.
What? Kuake awe Hawaii. Good time of year. Well, yeah, and we can't go anywhere, so we'll just daydream all day about. So we can make up a story about it.
Big surf this time of year usually.
Oh yeah.
In the winter.
On kanins kanachoe yache ya nastan. Talk ya Hawaii. Katuasagu we atkakashatiti in yahas kakanashtit. They like to ride the waves. Nick, hey. Kwasiata we huchi ai.
Gon kunach ach satach. Whoops.
Kunach ach tulayéx tlai we haswasaku we kunach yag air kunach yeti Hawaii tlachwasa kunach yag away ach tu wuch we
Shlitza. It smells good.
Hawaii koe kunach shitza with the seko. Atlein kayani awa kutsati. Kakeka hwain. Chikakoe yakakana hwainch. Yakeka hwain yuch. Akawe aloha kutasi yakakwa u. Chikakyaki. Okay. Yeah, so deseo is usually the air, which is really interesting because it could also mean breath of life or somebody's breath. It literally means, maybe we'll close with this. One is like shitza. So yeah, you can say shitza away with deseo, you or Hawaii kuk. Then you could say, Wakayane kutzati, the plants exist, kekahwain, yekakanahuin, or you could say yekakanahuinch. They're always blossoming. So it's a verb as well. And then, yeah, aloha kudasi yekakwa'u. I'm gonna wear an aloha shirt there. She's got a nice nani shirt there. It's got a nice looking shirt. And then, so coming back to this deseo, there's a really interesting connections between breathing and living and naming. I was listening to a recording from Ken Austin. He was saying, that's the verb for resting. Uwasa, that's the verb for naming something. Achsayi, that's the noun for my name. Wasatu wasaku, that's how you ask somebody what their name is. He was saying all of these things have the same verb root, sa, which is to breathe. As soon as somebody's breathing, we want to put a name on them. If you want to relax, you're just going to start breathing. That's how you rest. He was talking about how all these things were connected. That verb is sa. When you close it, it changes to say. So when you close and open double A verb root, it's going to change to a. So sa to sake. Similar, when you close the double O one, it's going to go from oo to way. So it's going to go WEI. The other ones don't change, right? So if it's what's left, E, you could just close that one, right? It doesn't have to change the vowel shape. But it's just interesting things to think about. I think the power is back on in a lot of places in Zanti Kahini, Akwan Anikuk, with kashóokʼ, tíx'i, wak'óots. Ye'awech wa'ach, achua yuhan adat away, yuchaylaat. Gwash achawe we kashóokʼ tíx'i, wak'óots. Tlingit wan qanins dasa dat away, tulashát, ye'quqwasti. Sometimes whatever we talk about comes into being. So I heard some of you talking about a power outage. So you really must have talked it into being. I think kashóokʼ is electricity. Tíx'i is a rope. That's how I would say. Kahis is another word for a wire. It comes from the verb tangled, which is pretty appropriate. Like if any of you are musicians or you're into electronics, if you plug a bunch of stuff in and you walk away and it never moves, when you go to unplug the stuff for some reason, it's all tangled up. I don't know how it works, magic. But then wak'óots is for a rope-like object to break. That's also how beams of light break. If you're ever breaking beams of lights. Anyways, it was fun. Candlelight class for some of us. And if you got kicked off, I hope you enjoyed the recording. Cheese for making these sentences. We got halfway through the story pretty much. So, and when we do these, just remember, it could be anything we want. The biggest part is just looking at something and trying to make language. There's no right or wrong way to make the stories. They're just for fun. And it's always fun to listen to you folks put the language together. Oh, and then I put one thing in the chat that I want to just sort of translate for you folks. I said, or shkalneek. When you're done working on the one paper, I guess I could have put kashóokʼ on there. Come back. So we can tell stories to each other. Okay, cheese. Qasatin.
Cheese.
Gosh, geez.
In a cheese.